Hey everybody, this is David, not ECBA. This is the master's course. I just got finished shooting one for the undergraduate course. This is MSOM 601, coming to you today from Harvard Yard here in Cambridge, Massachusetts, in the area of Boston. I'm here this week. My daughter is here for a conference. She is a director of recruitment for Southern Methodist University, and they have a big international recruiting conference here. And so she asked me if Dad wanted to come, and I said, sure, I'm always willing to go do things with my daughter. So welcome from Harvard. I'm hoping I'll be here and get a little smarter while I'm here as well. I want to do a recap on Lesson 2 today. Lesson 2 started with a discussion on the difference between strategic and critical thinking. I love the responses on this. Many of you got right to the heart of the matter on those. As I mentioned in my intro for the week, one of the challenges that you have is a lot of people in business today begin to think only strategically, and if you only think in the strategic sense, then sometimes you'll miss out on some more critical opportunities in global business. So overall, good job on the discussion board question this week. The case study really talked about, again, it was a case study about you on whether you think unrealistically or you think too narrowly. And those challenges are on ends of the spectrum. And so I think the big point I want to make on that one is for you as a manager going forward, not to discount people who are on the other end of the spectrum from where you are, because it takes all types. And one of the things that you'll find continuing in this course is to make sure that you focus on having a breadth of different people, opinions, thoughts going forward, or you're going to get yourself in a corner sometimes. And so many times it's not up to one individual to try and think on both ends of the spectrum, because again, I think you're beginning to learn that your thinking style kind of dictates the lens through which you're going to see issues, opportunities. And so many times it's much more effective to have other people on the team do those things for you. And then the course project outline this week. Again, some of you tended to overthink this one. I mentioned in my video last time, I don't want you to overthink it too much. I will post a sample project outline here. And again, just think of this as the roadmap. Think of your headings on that roadmap as the mile markers that you're going to use as you begin to format your presentation going forward. I'll make some comments on your submissions, and make sure that you take a look at those. If you have any questions about that, make sure that you talk to me going forward, okay? So that was pretty much Lesson 2. Lesson 3 going forward really talks about identification of the problem. Now this is a critical thing in critical thinking and problem solving, is to make sure that you spend the time necessary to identify the problem. And that's part of discussion 1. You have 2 discussion boards this week. Discussion 1 talks about the critical importance of accurately defining the problem. Again, people today, because they are in such a hurry, tend to try to want to get to the solution very quickly. And if you don't define the problem accurately and spend the time necessary on that critical first step, you may be solving a problem that's not really a problem, or you may be solving something that you think is the problem, but really isn't a problem either. And so I really look forward to you explaining the defining the problem portion of this. And then discussion 2, for many of you in engineering or Six Sigma or those types of things, you'll probably have heard of this technique before. But I wanted to put that in there, and I'm sorry about the graininess of the YouTube video on this one, but it's the is not technique. And this is a very effective technique, I think, to make sure that you're narrowing down what the key issue or the key problem is for companies on a particular topic, for a particular company. I use this technique, and I've used it in consulting many times, and particularly in sales. And I'll give you some examples after this particular week's over, but I encourage you to take a look at the is not technique and have an open mind as you look at it. And maybe there are some applications that you have outside of professional applications, but maybe even personal applications on that. Okay? The third thing this week is a case study, and the case study talks about the RED model, using the RED model to help solve a problem that a dental company is facing with their customers. Now, the RED model is something that I talked to some of the new students about, that you'll find in the book Now You're Thinking. But red is really a three-step problem-solving model. There are hundreds of problem-solving models out there, and so I just want to use one throughout the course. I don't want to use many, because if I do that, we'll only be an inch deep and a mile wide on some of those things going forward. So the red model is simply this. R stands for recognize assumptions. Many people, when you begin to solve problems and begin to look at problems, have a bunch of assumptions that they're bringing into the discussion. And so it's incredibly important that you recognize what those assumptions are, not only for you, but for all the people and all the stakeholders in that particular problem. So R, recognize assumptions. E is evaluate arguments. And you'll have a lot of different ways to approach a particular problem. Each one of you will have things that you will bring forward, and it's very important for you to look at those and evaluate those in the context of what you think the problem is. So recognize assumptions, evaluate arguments, and finally now, you're at the step where you can draw some conclusions. Again, much like any type of problem solving, the drawing conclusions part is the part that people walk in with. They have conclusions already drawn when they see a particular problem. Well, this whole model tells you you need to do two things before you even get to drawing conclusions on a particular problem. All right? So I would encourage you in the red model to apply this to this dentist example. And then I'll give you another tip that I gave some of the new students that I talked to on the phone. I love it when you apply the red model to a lot of the different assignments in the course. Some of the times I'm going to say apply the red model. Some of the times I'm not. But if I don't say apply the red model and you apply the red model, I get a big smile on my face. I do the happy dance. I do all of those things because it tells me that you're utilizing some of the techniques that you're learning in the course to really benefit you personally, professionally, and otherwise. Okay? Well, it's a beautiful day here. I'm going to do a little walking. It's actually Memorial Day weekend. And if you have any questions or concerns, make sure you reach out and contact me. In the meantime, study hard, and my finger's coming at the screen.